if you are deciding which A levels to do, what's best place to direct you to robotics at university?
So it's sort of what I said in the talk. Any of the sort of technical A levels, in the sense that mathematics is pretty much a necessity nowadays to do if you want to study something like computer science or engineering at university. So definitely mathematics. That if you apply for computer science or engineering or something, your place is usually contingent on your maths grade. Studying computer science is useful, but probably not the be all and end all. Physics is also the other one. So as I said in the talk, really the vector would be maths, physics, computer science. But that's, I'd say maths is pretty much the most important one in that one.
Okay. STEAM versus STEM. Discuss.
Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, when I saw that coming up, I thought, oh, maybe that will be controversial or whatever. I didn't mean to belittle any of the arts, of course. It's very, very important. Something like robotics, there is an element of sort of, I guess, artistic design to robots and stuff. But I guess my talk was primarily talking about if you want to get involved in sort of the nitty-gritty technical stuff about advancing the field of robotics and that sort of stuff. And so that's the STEM fields, I said computer science, the two engineerings and those sorts of fields are the things that are most well suited for this.
When you were looking at which universities to go to, which ones did you find were good for studying robotics?
Yeah, well, good question. I will give my university a plug. Edinburgh actually has one of the largest computer science faculties in the world. So we have a lot of researchers, and it's one of the top. School of Informatics is what the computer science school is called. And so we have very, very large robotics research that I've been, as I spoke about, being fortunate enough to get involved with. So Edinburgh is really good for robotics stuff. Some of the other universities that sort of come to mind, of course, you have Oxbridge. Oxford has a bit more robotics than Cambridge, from what I understand. But other universities like Bristol has a lot of robotic operations. I know there've been quite a few startup companies that sort of come out of Bristol as well. So Bristol and Sheffield, and there's lots of places that you can go to that are really good for robotics, or also good for any of the fields sort of surrounding robotics. So telling you about sort of AI, computer vision, and things like that.
Okay, cool. How do robotics specific university courses compare to more general engineering and CS courses?
Yeah, so obviously I haven't done one, so I'm not best placed to sort of speak about this. From my understanding, if you study robotics at undergraduate level, it tends to be offered by, I know that, for example, there's another university in Edinburgh called Heriot-Watt. I think they have a robotics course. It tends to be pretty much computer science, but at least at Edinburgh and most universities, when you study pure computer science, you have a lot of choice about what courses you do. So you can choose to pick lots of robotics courses and lots of computer vision and AI courses, for example. If you tend to go for a robotics course, it's pretty much computer science, but they've made all those decisions for you. So you just have compulsory, you have to do the introduction to vision and robotics course, for example. And maybe they'll start to specialize and do a bit of kinematics and this sort of stuff early on in your degree, rather than leaving it a little bit later. So there's not really much in it. My personal recommendation is it seems to be that I wouldn't get caught up on it. Pure computer science is just as good, and probably better to start a bit broader, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, I've lost the screen, keeps reconfiguring itself. So question from Harry. I'm doing A levels now, hoping to go into something robotics/engineering course at university. He's unsure what course to go for, and he'd love to make robots that go into space. Yeah.
That's obviously a very large domain of robotics, and some of the research work that goes on at Edinburgh is exactly for that sort of final end implementation goal. So it very much comes down to which is what you're interested in, right? If you study computer science, as I said in my talk, the sort of robotics work that you can do there is probably more sort of software, control theory, algorithms for robots moving intelligently and things like that. So, path planning and obstacle avoidance and things like that. If you're more interested in electrical engineering, then maybe you're going to be focused on trying to build better motors that have, higher torques or something like that, or perhaps you're more focused on building batteries that have a greater capacity. These are all really, really important. The robots that I showed you in my talk, like Atlas and the Valkyrie robot that we have at the laboratory, they only run for about 45 minutes to an hour on their battery. So that's just as important of a question as how can I make the best planning algorithm that will, intelligently avoid something, for example. So that's also really important. And then you obviously have all of the mechanical aspect of the robot and, trying to make lightweight materials and things like that. If you're going to go into space, you want to have a robot that's as light as possible, that can do as much as possible. So it just depends whatever you'd like to align yourself with. Robotics is very multidisciplinary, but also wouldn't worry too much. We have people in our lab, for example, who were mechanical engineers or did mechanical engineering undergraduate and then went into robotics, went into more computer sciencey side. It's not super prescriptive. A lot of these skills, a lot of the maths sort of goes across all of the disciplines.
Paul Fretwell has asked, have you got any good resources for learning control theory?
Good question. If anybody else has any, then send them my way as well. But not off the top of my head. There's some very... most of the robotics stuff I've done is, of course, sort of at undergraduate level. Control theory is starting to be more of like a master's level type thing. So there are actually some really good, and I've started working through some of them before sort of getting distracted as you do with these sort of live courses, but like Coursera things. So there's a very famous MIT course called Underactuated Robotics, which is given by a very famous robotics professor called Russ Ted Drake. And so that's a lot about actually sort of less traditional control theory and stuff like that. So that's a really interesting course, especially if you're very analytically minded, you're not going to shy away from the maths and stuff like that. But other than that, there's some great sort of textbooks and stuff which are talking about control theory and that sort of stuff.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks so much, Matt, for taking the time out of your studies.
All right. Yeah. And thank you for having me. And anybody, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter if you have any more questions, or my DMs are open on Twitter and stuff.
And remind us what your Twitter handle is.
At Raspberry Pi Guy 1.